My name is Emily Carter. I'm 18 years old, and I've spent my entire life believing in my parents' promises. I believed that if I worked hard, behaved, and didn't bother anyone, fairness would come back to me. I lived by the blueprint they laid out for me. Good grades, good manners, no backtalk. I used to think that if I did everything right, they'd love me the way they loved my brother, Zach. Zach is 4 years older than me. To outsiders, he was the perfect son. Handsome, outgoing, confident, even the captain of the high school football team. But I, who lived under the same roof with him for 14 years, knew the truth. Zach was always forgiven, always favored, always idolized, no matter what he did wrong. I remember it clearly. Back in 8th grade, Zach got suspended for bringing beer to class and cracking one open during biology. The reason? He was dared to. I thought he'd be grounded, lose his phone, maybe even get a serious scolding. But nope. My parents, Karen and Thomas, just laughed and said, "He was just curious. He's a kid." Mom even joked, "As long as he's not drinking and driving, it's fine." And me? If I so much as dropped a glass, I had to clean it up, apologize, and get scolded for not being as careful as Zach. Anytime something went wrong, no matter how small, I was always the one blamed. She's too sensitive. She's not as tough as her brother. At some point, I started to believe that everything really was my fault. When Zach started college at Michigan State, my parents threw a huge backyard party, catered BBQ, and over 50 guests. I was carrying trays of cupcakes Mom made me bake. No one asked how I felt. No one asked what I wanted to study. I was just a shadow behind the family pride. But I didn't complain. I had learned to stay quiet. I studied hard, earned a partial scholarship to the University of Michigan, one of the few things that made me feel like I was enough. When my acceptance letter came, all Mom said was, "Good. That saves us some tuition. But don't expect a party like Zach's." Still, I didn't feel sad. Deep down, I clung to one belief, that my parents had promised to cover my college tuition, just like they did for Zach. I remember clearly, one night in 10th grade, Mom hugged me and said, "Don't worry, Emily, you won't have to think about tuition. We've planned for this. Your only job is to study hard." I did study hard. I got into college, and I believed that promise. On my first morning in the dorm, I opened my suitcase, unpacked my things onto the shelf, and thought, this is the start of a whole new journey. I pictured late-night study sessions, exciting classes, and a future I would build with my own hands. I felt proud of myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Zach's shadow. I was Emily, separate and independent. During my first week, I studied and worked part-time at the campus library, not because I desperately needed the money. My parents still sent me a monthly allowance, but because I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to feel like I owed anyone anything. I even thought to myself, after graduation, I'll apply for a grad school scholarship and work at a big engineering firm. My college life was off to a smooth start, until one day in mid-September, when Zach started a family video call on our Messenger group chat. I clicked into the call and saw Zach standing next to a sleek black sports car with shiny LED lights and brand new plates. "Surprise," he shouted. "Just picked her up yesterday." My parents clapped and laughed. "So proud of you, Zach," my mom beamed. "That car is gorgeous. You totally deserve it." I froze. "You bought it with what?" Zach grinned. "Dad's card. He gave me full permission. It's on a payment plan. No biggie. Like $1,500 a month. Totally manageable." I forced a weak smile, but my stomach twisted inside. Zach didn't have a full-time job. He was about to graduate, but hadn't even finished school yet. How was he going to pay for it? No one brought it up. No one asked if this was even a smart decision. They just kept laughing and cheering him on. I ended the call after a few minutes and splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom. I tried to push the feeling down, telling myself, it's his life, not my problem. Don't let it get to you. But I knew a storm was coming. A month later, I was studying late one night when my phone rang. It was Mom, 11:37 p.m. I picked up, thinking something urgent had happened. Emily. Her voice dropped low. Zach is in a bit of trouble. What happened? I asked, anxiety rising in my chest. This month, he couldn't make the car payment. He just started a job and hasn't gotten his first paycheck yet. But the loan can't be late. I sat up straight, a wave of dread washing over me. Your dad and I have decided to use your college fund to cover this payment, just for now. We'll make it up to you later. Don't worry. My heart stopped. What? It's just temporary. Once Zach gets settled, we'll pay you back. Don't blow this out of proportion. I was shaking. That's my tuition money. How could you give it to him? This is my first semester, Mom. Emily, don't talk like that. You're being selfish. It's your brother's first car. What? You want it to get repossessed? He'd be humiliated. I burst into tears right then, not because of the money, but because of the betrayal. I mattered less than Zach's car. I mattered less than his so-called dignity. My whole life had been built on a promise, and they shattered it like it meant nothing. I won't accept this, I said through broken breaths. If you go through with this, then don't expect me to ever call you again. Are you threatening us now? My mom snapped. After everything we've done for you. I hung up. After I hung up, I sat on my bed for a long time, my hand still gripping the phone like my body hadn't caught up with what had just happened. What I felt wasn't anger anymore. It was a deep, hollow sense of disappointment. I thought I had mentally prepared myself for the worst, but no one is ever truly ready when their own parents rip away the future they once promised to protect. I quietly walked out of the dorm, bringing nothing but my phone and a thin jacket. The night was colder than I expected. The wind sliced across my face as I stepped into the parking lot. I didn't have a car, but I knew exactly where I needed to go. My grandparents' house. My maternal grandparents, Margaret and Harold Whitmore, lived in a small town about an hour from campus. I'd never shown up there unannounced, especially not in the middle of the night. But tonight, I needed a place where I'd be heard. No judgment, no favoritism. I unlocked my phone and found Grandpa's number. My fingers trembled as I hit call. It rang twice before a groggy, raspy voice answered. Emily? What's going on, sweetheart? I couldn't hold back my tears. My voice cracked. I'm sorry for calling so late, but I don't know what else to do. Calm down, Emily. Are you safe? Grandpa was instantly alert, his voice firm but gentle. I'm okay. But they took my tuition money, Grandpa, to cover Zach's car payments. Silence. A long, dreadful silence. Then I heard Grandma's voice in the background. What is it, Harold? Is Emily okay? He replied quickly. Grab your coat, dear. We're going to get her. Less than 40 minutes later, their old silver SUV pulled up in front of my dorm. Grandpa was in the driver's seat. Grandma wore a wool robe, her silver hair still tousled from sleep. When I opened the back door and climbed in, she just turned around quietly, reached out, and held my hand. She didn't say a word. Her eyes were red, and I knew she already knew everything. We barely spoke during the drive. I leaned my head against the window, watching the streetlights pass by like shattered memories. By the time we turned onto the narrow road leading to their warm brick house, I was nearly asleep from exhaustion. That late-night dinner, Grandma made me a steaming bowl of chicken soup, and Grandpa poured me hot chocolate, just like when I was little. I told them everything. Every bit. The lifelong favoritism, the betrayal this time. I've always known Zach was the favorite, I choked out. But I really thought when it came to something important like college, they'd keep their word. Grandpa squeezed my hand. They don't have the right to take away your dream, Emily. No one does. I don't want to be a burden on you both. I know tuition isn't a small thing. Hush now. Grandma cut in, her voice firm. You're not a burden. You're the only one in that family who knows right from wrong. Grandpa nodded. You're going to finish college. Grandma and I will make sure of it. Stop worrying. I cried again, but this time it was from relief. The next morning, I woke up in my mom's old room, now the guest room. The room was wrapped in time. Lavender wallpaper, dark wooden shelves, and a window that overlooked the rose garden. On the table, Grandma had left toast and a handwritten note. You are the greatest pride of our lives. I felt like I'd been reborn into a new kind of family, one where I didn't have to fight for love. When I picked up my phone, there were dozens of missed calls from Mom, Dad, and Zach, and messages poured in. Mom, what do you think you're doing? You think calling your grandparents was smart? Dad, you've made your grandparents lose faith in us. Hope you're proud. Zach, seriously, Em? You're blowing all this up over a few $1,000s? Grow up. I was shaking with rage. But I didn't respond. I knew the only reason they were truly angry wasn't because I was hurt, but because I dared to fight back. I blocked them all. That afternoon, Grandpa asked me to sit with him on the back porch. Emily, he began, I spoke with the family lawyer. If your parents don't return your college fund, we'll cover everything. But either way, I'm deducting the entire amount from the inheritance they were supposed to receive. I was stunned. You don't have to do that. I just want to finish school. I'm not looking for revenge. He looked at me for a moment, then shook his head. This isn't revenge. It's justice. People who choose to protect the pride of a reckless child over the future of a good one shouldn't be given another chance to cause harm. I said nothing. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to apologize for standing up for myself. On Monday morning, I returned to campus. No one knew where I'd gone. I told my roommate Lily I'd gone to visit my grandparents because of family stuff. Lily didn't pry, but before heading to class, she said, You're strong, you know. Not everyone can cut out toxic blood. I smiled faintly. Sometimes, you don't get a choice. I opened my school email. In my inbox was the invoice for next semester, $7,416.34. Just beneath it was a new email from Harold Whitmore. My dear, don't worry about the money. Just study well and live a life that honors who you are. Your school account was paid this morning. Love, Grandpa. I cried again, not because I was weak, but because I was finally heard, chosen, protected. I thought that once I got back to school, everything would calm down. I turned off my phone, logged out of social media, and threw myself into my studies. I stayed at the library late, joined a research study group, and even applied to be a teaching assistant for next year. I wanted to drown in work just to forget everything. But my family wouldn't let me. That Wednesday morning, Lily, my roommate, walked in holding her phone with a strange look on her face. She hesitated, then handed it to me to show a Facebook post. It's heartbreaking when your children turn their backs on those who sacrificed everything for them. We raise them with gratitude and responsibility, only to be met with cold betrayal. Karen Carter. Below it was an old photo, me at 16 standing beside my mom, holding a certificate for academic excellence. I still remembered that day. She showed up late, said a few hollow words, then left halfway through the ceremony. That picture was one of the rare times she posted about me. And now it was being used as a prop in a guilt-drenched, self-righteous post. Dozens of comments followed, some from strangers, but also names I recognized. Aunt Lorraine. That girl is selfish. I heard she demanded her grandparents cut off her parents just so she'd keep studying. Cousin Becky. Gen Z is so entitled, raised and supported, and then they bite the hand that fed them. Uncle Greg. If she were my kid, I would have cut her off a long time ago. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe what they were saying. People who once hugged me as a child, gave me Christmas presents, now turning on me so quickly over one post. "You okay?" Lily asked, sitting beside me. I nodded, but I wasn't okay. I skipped class that day. I walked around the lake behind the library where a quiet brick path wound past mossy benches. I sat there rereading every comment, every accusation, with one question echoing in my mind. Was I really wrong? That's the scariest part. When an entire system of people who once knew you tries to redefine who you are. When they all say you're the bad child, you start to believe it. I kept wondering, am I really selfish? Am I the one tearing the family apart? But just as I hit emotional rock bottom, my phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Linda, my mom's cousin who lived in Arizona. "Aunt Linda, you're not wrong. I know what's going on. I've seen how much you've put up with all these years. I'm on your side. Forget the ones who don't get it." A few minutes later, my cousin James texted, "James, need to talk? The girl who helped me with my senior essay is now the family traitor? What a joke. You're amazing. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." I cried, not out of sadness, but because someone finally believed me. That afternoon, I went back to my grandparents' house. Grandpa was reading the paper. Grandma was baking cookies. They had seen the post. "Your parents have officially declared war," Grandpa said, not looking up. "They're trying to turn you into the villain to hide what they did. And we won't let that happen," Grandma added, setting the cookie tray on the table. "But everyone believes them," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Not everyone does. And no one can change the truth. Don't let them manipulate you again." The next morning, Grandpa went to meet with a lawyer. I didn't know what he discussed, but by the afternoon, he handed me a printed letter with an embossed seal. Notice from Whitmore and Associates Law Office. As of today, all financial support for Emily Carter will be provided solely by Margaret and Harold Whitmore. Any inheritance or estate privileges previously allocated to Karen and Thomas Carter are hereby indefinitely suspended. All academic, living, and medical expenses for Emily Carter will be paid through the Emily Whitmore Fund, officially established on October 18th. I stared at Grandpa, stunned. "Wait. What fund?" "It's a way to protect you from any future financial interference from them," he said, "and a way to let them know they have no power over you anymore." I hugged him tight, then Grandma too. I had never felt so safe, so protected. That evening, I logged back into Facebook, not to defend myself, not to explain, but to end it. I wrote a short post. Emily Carter. I used to believe in my parents' promises. I used to think that if I was smart, obedient, and never caused trouble, I'd be loved equally. But when my future was deemed less important than a car, I saw the truth. This isn't betrayal. This is self-preservation. I don't need anyone's belief. I have enough people by my side. And most importantly, I chose to stand by myself. I posted it, then logged out. I didn't need to read comments. I didn't need to argue. For the first time, I didn't care what people thought of me. I knew exactly who I was. The next morning, Mom called more than 10 times. I didn't answer. She sent a furious message. "You're making everything worse. You're embarrassing your grandparents. Don't think a little tuition money makes you some kind of hero." I didn't respond. An hour later, a message from Dad. "If you want to cut ties, just say it. Don't drag your grandparents into this." Still no response from me. Finally, a message from Zach. "Congrats, drama queen. You win. But don't expect me to save you later." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He never understood, and he never will. I returned to school with a completely different mindset. Before, every time my parents called, my heart clenched with fear. Not anymore. Not because the pain was gone, but because I'd gotten used to it. Like a wound that never heals, but becomes something you learn to live with. My grandparents continued to cover my tuition each semester through the Emily Whitmore Fund. On the outside, everything seemed calm. Classes, the library, my part-time job. But I knew, beneath it all, a storm was still brewing inside my family. Then one day, Grandma quietly placed a thick envelope in front of me, tucked neatly into a black folder. "You should read this," she said. I opened it. It was the most recent version of their will, legally sealed and notarized. I read every line, and the more I read, the more my hands shook. The entire estate, a 3-bedroom brick house, 2 properties in Ann Arbor and Traverse City, and over $2.4 million in savings, was to be left to me. There wasn't a single mention of my mother, my father, or Zach. I looked up. "Are you really going to do this?" Grandma took my hand. "You think this doesn't break our hearts, taking our daughter's name off our will?" Grandpa spoke up from the living room, where he was wiping down an old photo frame. "But it would hurt even more to keep hoping they'll ever change." I bit my lip. "But what if they find out?" "Don't worry," she smiled. "We haven't said a word. Only the lawyer knows. And no one keeps a secret better than a lawyer." I looked down at the will. It wasn't that I wanted the money. Honestly, I had no idea what I'd do with that much. But the fact that they did it, it was like they were declaring to the world that I deserved to be loved, and that this injustice needed to be righted. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Aunt Linda. "Your parents came to see your grandparents yesterday. They demanded the new will be revoked, said they'd cut ties if it wasn't." I sighed. I wasn't surprised. She followed up with another message. "Harold said something that stunned everyone. We lost our daughter a long time ago, but we've just now found Emily." I read that line over and over. What I felt couldn't be named. It was part sadness, part warmth, part ache, and part pride. Since learning about the will, my parents went completely silent. No texts, no calls. But I knew they were waiting for my grandparents to waver, waiting for me to cave. They never apologized. They just wanted back what they thought was rightfully theirs. I wasn't angry anymore. I had passed through the rage. Now all I felt was pity. They had their chance to be parents, to make things right, but they chose pride. And now they've lost everything, not because of me, but because of themselves. A month later, I went with my grandparents to a small gathering at our old church, the one my family used to attend when I was little. Everyone was surprised to see me there with them, bright, confident, no longer hiding behind my mother like I used to. A family acquaintance approached, smirking slightly, and asked, "Haven't seen your mother around lately. Everything okay?" I smiled. She's probably busy figuring out how to hold on to things she thought automatically belonged to her. Grandpa chuckled behind me. "This girl, she's a true Whitmore." I looked at him, then around the room, and I knew I had finally found where I belonged. One Monday morning in early December, while I was typing an essay during a free period at the library, my phone buzzed. It was a strange email with an all-caps subject line. "Emily, please respond to your parents." I opened it. It was from my mother. "We've thought about everything a lot. Things have gone too far, and maybe we should sit down together and talk, like a family. Your grandparents are being influenced by outsiders. They're not seeing things clearly or fairly anymore. I know you're angry, but remember, no one is perfect. We were once a family. You don't have to forgive us right away, but at least give us a chance to explain. I love you." I stared at the screen. It was an apology, at least on the surface, but the most painful part was how she spoke about my grandparents, the ones who saved me, as if they were somehow being manipulated or not clear-headed enough to still be on her side. Part of me wanted to respond right away. Another part wanted to delete it, forget it, and never look back. I chose a third option. I emailed Grandpa. An hour later, I got a call from Grandpa Harold. "We got the same email this morning," he said as calmly as ever. Your parents called too. They said they're falling apart. They begged for a meeting. What do you think? I asked. I think you don't owe them anything. But if you want to meet, we'll be there. So you won't have to face them alone. I stayed quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Let's do it. But at your house. No Zach. No avoiding things. That afternoon, when I got to my grandparents' house, Grandma had already made tea and baked an apple pie, my childhood favorite. The kitchen was warm, sunlight slanting through the window onto the old oak dining table. It felt too peaceful for the kind of storm that was about to unfold. At exactly 4:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. I sat on the sofa, trying to steady my breathing as Grandpa opened the door. My mom walked in first. Her eyes were puffy, but her makeup was flawless. Dad followed behind, looking tired and smaller than I remembered. They didn't look at me right away. Both stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room, like uninvited guests. Hi, sweetie, Mom said first. Thank you for giving us this chance. I didn't respond. I just looked at them. Dad cleared his throat. We've all made mistakes, but we're family, and we shouldn't let money divide us like this. I smirked. A mistake? A mistake is draining my entire tuition fund to save a car my brother couldn't afford, then slandering me online, then blaming Grandma and Grandpa for taking my side. Emily, we just wanted to help Zach. He was desperate, Mom began, her voice trembling. And what about me? I cut in. When I was desperate, who helped me? When I begged you not to touch the fund, you called me selfish. When I tried to protect my future, you said I was tearing the family apart. The air went still, like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. We were wrong, Dad said quietly. And I'm sorry. Mom lowered her head. Me too. I looked at them. For a long time. Apologies are a beginning, I said, my voice steady. But forgiveness isn't owed, and love doesn't patch back together just because someone says sorry after shattering everything. I stood up. Thank you for coming, but I don't want to continue this conversation. My mom looked up, her face flushed. So this is really it? I didn't end this, I said, walking toward the door. You did, long ago. Today I'm just confirming it. They left. My grandparents didn't say a word, just pulled me into a tight hug afterward. In their embrace, I realized I was no longer the child begging for love. I was someone who had chosen freedom, at the cost of a toxic relationship. A week later, I received an email from the university. I'd been selected as the outstanding student representative to speak at the annual academic symposium, an important event attended by school leadership, donors, and local media. I read the final line of the invitation, and my heart stirred. For her outstanding contributions and unwavering resilience, Emily Carter will be this year's keynote speaker on the theme, Redefining Family and Personal Worth. I smiled, placing my hand over my heart. I knew I had reached a turning point. I stood backstage at the university's largest auditorium, the microphone trembling slightly in my hand. Even after rehearsing this speech nearly 20 times, my heart was still racing. Not because I feared the crowd, but because I knew this speech would reach those who once wanted me silenced forever. The University of Michigan's annual academic symposium is a prestigious event, celebrating students with academic excellence, leadership spirit, and voices that spark change in the community. When I accepted the invitation to speak on redefining family and personal worth, I knew this wasn't just my story anymore. The music faded, the lights dimmed. The announcer called my name, and I stepped onto the stage, looking out at over 300 people. Faculty, top students from across the state, a few local journalists, and my grandparents, sitting in the second row, holding each other's hands, like they were cradling their whole world. I took a deep breath. Good afternoon, I began, my voice echoing gently through the microphone. My name is Emily Carter, and today I won't be talking about academic achievements. I'll be talking about what kept me standing, what kept me from falling months ago. A murmur swept through the audience. I continued, eyes steady. I used to think family meant the people who gave you life, raised you, and always put your well-being first. But I've come to realize, not everyone is that lucky. Not everyone has parents who see them as individuals, with dreams, and a value of their own. Many of us grow up in silence, in the shadow of favoritism, under the weight of promises never kept. I paused, my voice catching for just a second. And then, one day, I was asked to sacrifice my future to protect someone's credit score for a sports car. They called me selfish for saying no, ungrateful for turning to my grandparents, a traitor for standing up for myself. I pressed my lips together. But today, I'm not here to accuse. I'm here to say thank you. Thank you to my grandparents, who chose to love me when my parents chose their pride. Thank you to those who reached out when I thought no one believed in me. And thank you to myself for not giving up. I paused for a beat, then ended with a line that brought silence to the entire hall. Family isn't where you come from. It's who chooses not to abandon you, even when the whole world does. Applause erupted. My grandparents rose to their feet, tears streaming down my grandmother's face. I saw board members nodding, journalists typing furiously. I stepped off the stage, my heart lighter than ever. The next day, my speech was published on the university's official website and then quickly spread across social media under the headline, "Freshman Moves Audience to Tears with Story of Parents Denying Her Right to a College Education." I didn't share it myself, but someone else did. A day later, my father called. This time I picked up. His voice was tired. "Emily, that speech, it's everywhere." I didn't answer. "Your mom and I are being attacked. People think we're monsters." I let out a soft laugh. "You want me to protect your reputation now? That's not what I meant." "Dad," I interrupted, voice calm, "you and Mom once chose pride over me. Now I'm choosing silence over saving you." I hung up. 2 weeks after the speech, everything spun like a whirlwind. I never imagined a talk less than 10 minutes long could spread so far. Local media began covering it, then major student blogs picked it up. The hashtag #IStandWithEmily started trending on Twitter. Even a professor from UCLA emailed me, inviting me to speak at a conference on redefining family in modern education. Between the flood of emails, messages, and invitations, I could barely breathe. But unlike those sudden bursts of viral fame I'd seen online, the ugly kind, this felt different. This felt like being heard. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, my old family was beginning to crumble. Aunt Linda called one Friday night. Her voice was soft but clear. "Emily, I think you should know about this." I stopped typing my paper. "What is it?" "Zach was fired this week. Your uncle's company couldn't take the public pressure anymore. Some clients emailed saying they didn't want to do business with a firm that once had someone who stole his sister's future to buy a sports car." I stayed silent. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt empty. "As for your parents," she continued, "they've been removed from the leadership board at the local church. Some members don't think they should represent families in the school aid programs anymore. Too many people have seen your speech, Emily." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I understand. You don't have to feel guilty," she said, reading my thoughts. "They did this to themselves. It's not your fault." I didn't answer, because deep down, I still felt a sliver of responsibility. Even though I hadn't meant to disgrace them, even though I never even mentioned their names in the speech. But the truth carries weight, and it doesn't need names to hit where it hurts. That night, I went online and saw Zach's latest Instagram post. Sometimes all you do is make one small mistake, and the whole world wants to bury you. I'm not perfect, but I don't deserve this. Family is where you forgive each other, not where you kill someone with a speech. I didn't comment, but a question echoed in my mind. If he thought it was just a small mistake, then what about all the years I was treated like I didn't exist? No one in my family truly believed they were wrong. They were just angry they'd been exposed. They weren't sorry for hurting me. They were sorry I had the courage not to stay silent. While they scrambled to salvage their pride, I took another step toward the future. One Monday morning, I received an offer for a summer internship in Geneva, Switzerland, from an NGO focused on education policy. In the letter, the recruiter wrote, "Your speech convinced us that Emily Carter is more than just an engineering student. You're someone who understands the power dynamics within families and society. We want you here to help shape our program supporting students affected by family injustice." I burst into tears. Not because of the prestige, but because, for the first time, I was chosen, not as Zach's little sister, but as me. I went to my grandparents' house to share the news. When I walked in, Grandpa was mowing the lawn and Grandma was folding laundry in the living room. "Grandpa, Grandma, I got selected to go to Switzerland." They both looked up at the same time. Grandma's eyes lit up. "Oh my goodness, Emily, that's amazing," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. Grandpa put down the shears and patted my shoulder. "See? The ones who stay true to themselves go farther than anyone who lives to please others." We celebrated with cherry pie and apple cider. No big party, no cameras, just the three of us, and that was enough to make a whole family. That night, I got one last email from my mother. "We may not have another way forward, but I hope that when you succeed, you'll understand that sometimes parents make mistakes only because they're trying to protect the one they love most. I hope someday you'll forgive." Mom, I read every word. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel love either. Just nothing. They were once everything, but now they were just strangers who taught me. Sometimes to live right, you have to let go of what you thought would last forever.